Welcome to Idling in the Impala, a podcast by and for lovers of supernatural and the fan fiction it inspires. I'm Sandra.
I'm Karlee, and today we have another very special guest. And it finally happened, guys. It finally happened. I don't have to carry all 6'4" of Sam Winchester all on my own anymore. We are joined today by Lou, who goes by There Must Be a Lock on AO3. And is that the same on Tumblr as well, or do you have a different Tumblr one?
It's the same on Tumblr, but it's dashes instead of underscores on Tumblr.
So dashes on Tumblr, underscores on AO3. And she is also a Sam lover. And if this is the point where she interrupts me and goes, I also like Dean, I'm going to cry. And then I'm going to throw a huge paddy and there will be no episode of this podcast. But it finally happened. We finally have a Sam lover on. So let's start always at the beginning. How did you get into Supernatural, Lou? When was it? Were you there from the beginning? Did you come in at the end? Tell us about getting into Supernatural.
I'm actually really fairly new to this, all things considered. It was like 2017, I think. So about 5 years ago. I'm a teacher, and so I was only working part-time in the summer, and I was home a lot doing a lot of art, and I went through like 10 seasons in a really embarrassingly short amount of time. And I think I finished my first watch like right before season 12 or 13 started coming out. So yeah, I was fairly late to it. But do you want me to tell the whole fandom history? The whole,
yes,
yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So like I started writing fan fiction when I was 13. On a website called Quizilla, which was like the Wild West of the internet.
That rings a bell. I know that one.
It was Lords of Dogtown fic. And then put it down a couple years later, came back, wrote some William Beckett from The Academy Is. And then it was Panic at the Disco.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Twinsies.
Yeah.
My Chemical Romance and the Used.
Well, okay, so I didn't write about them at that time, but yes, I am literally wearing a My Chemical Romance shirt.
Yes. You can come back every week. Yes.
So like one of my like reluctant say to Sam fics features him and Frank Iero, which we can get into later, like just because the height difference made me laugh. Anyway,
yeah.
Just sorry, it's gonna happen. So I actually went to college for writing, and I got my degree in nonfiction. I mostly wrote personal essays, and after college, I kind of like I had this huge creative block, and I didn't write for like 4 years. Because I had this idea in my head that it was like a serious thing that I had to take seriously. And like, if I was going to write, it had to be a big deal, and it had to be deep, and it had to be meaningful, and it had to be personal. And at that time, I really didn't want to write about the things that were, happening in my life. So I just didn't, I just stopped writing for like 4 years. And then I watched Supernatural that summer, and I had that, that like fandom feeling where you just get sucked in and want more and can't get enough. And so for the first time in like years and years and years, I looked up fan fiction for Supernatural. And I got this idea, and I think it's because the show, like, anything can happen. And because they don't take themselves so seriously, and because it's, there are all these alternate universes and all of these, like, anything can happen, basically.
Yeah.
And there's space for imagination within that. And so I got this silly idea and started writing, and never really stopped again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
What was your first story about Supernatural related?
Oh God. So, I started writing this story, and I had no idea how it was going to end when I started. I just had this idea of like, what if Soulless Sam had a one-night stand with this girl, and then like however many years later they meet on a case, and she's a vampire hunter and whatever. And I yeah, from at the beginning, it was really like, I had no idea where it was going. I had no idea like how to plot it. Sort of found my groove, but then by the time I was like 3/4 of the way through, I kind of honestly just lost interest. And I got hung up on like all of the things about the beginning that I wished I could change. And so I took that. And like, I've always had it in the back of my head because like there's a bit of plot that I'm very fond of. And I've always had the intention of going back to it and rewriting it, but it hasn't happened yet. So maybe someday. And then I think it was Marked was the next big one.
Yeah, and that's a Dean one.
It is. Yeah, it is. That was.
We're like on thin ice, people. We're on thin ice. We're not here to talk about Dean. We've talked about Dean enough. We could relabel the last like 4 episodes of this podcast the Jensen Ackles Hour.
So I think maybe Lou, if you could talk a little bit about like your thoughts on Sam and Dean, primarily Sam, but like starting with Sam, like your overall thoughts about the character.
Just before you do that, Lou, I'm like about 10 scrolls back in your AO3 history, and I found that Jared Frank fic, and I fucking bookmarked it.
Nice.
The title is my favorite thing about it. That's great.
That was silly. It references something anyway. Height differences.
Yes. I don't know if you know the band, Sandra, but Frank is
of them.
He's
tiny. He's like
tiny.
Jen.
Is he like Rowena? Is he like Rowena?
He's like Jen. The height difference between Frank and Jared would be the same as between him and Jen. He's fucking tiny.
Okay.
And she called the fig this tall to ride. Come on now.
I did see that one.
Yes.
It's like, oh my God. Okay. Yeah, no, Sam is like making fun of him for his height. And I had a lot of fun writing that. It was really
yes. Okay. You can now go and talk about anything that you wanted to talk about. I was just like, I found it.
Nice. Okay, let's see. Sam Winchester. So I think that something that I feel like is the main difference in like the way I write about I don't want to. Okay, hang on. I'm getting my thoughts in order. I have so many things to say about Sam, and I don't know where to start.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
So I think that one of the things that I identify with a lot with Sam is like the substance abuse issue. You know, the whole like demon blood plot line. Definitely saw some of myself in that, and in the like Lucifer plot line with the whole bodily autonomy and trauma and consent and all of those issues. Really, you know, like that is something I identify with, and so I've written a lot about, you know, my own issues through Sam's issues with those things.
Yeah,
and I think that he is just. I think he's a really incredible character just because he is so many things, and he really contains so many contradictions and is so, I think, aware of his own contradictions. He is aware that he, you know, doesn't quite fit anywhere in any of these worlds that he sort of steps in and out of. You know, he was always... Chewbacca. No.
Oh my God, your dog's name is Chewbacca. That's the greatest thing ever.
I might get up and put his bark collar on him in a second because he's loud.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
So I think that, you know, Sam has all of these different facets of himself where you know, he never really felt like he fit in right with his dad and his brother, and then he went off to Stanford and never quite felt like he fit right because of where he came from. And he has always had trouble fitting in and sort of finding a place where he fits and reconciling all of those different parts of himself, where he is both an incredible like smart, geeky, whatever, and also, very powerful and strong and can end the universe or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think that he is very aware of that, and that makes him extremely kind to the people that they encounter that have been through the same things. The way that he responds to like any of the sort of like misfits that they meet, like the girl in what was the one in the girl in the church when they dressed up as priests that one time. It's very memorable.
Oh, damn. Yeah, the priest bit is memorable. The girl, not so much.
Anyway, I feel like he is just so kind and so good at putting himself in other people's shoes and like seeing the good in them because people haven't always seen the good in him. He has taken all of this stuff that, has happened to him and has only used it to make himself kinder. And I think that that's one of my absolute favorite things.
Yeah.
In a person, not just a character, but like, I think that is really remarkable. And I love that about him. I think that it's incredible that he has gone through all of this shit and he has only used it to make himself more kind and more gentle. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, like he has so many contradictions and he's so interesting to write about for that reason. Like there's so much in him that you can sort of pull out through these different characters and different plot lines and really like find so many different things in him to identify with, I guess.
Yeah. No, I identify with that. I'm sort of see a lot of, like you, I see a lot of myself in Sam, especially in the kind of going against the tradition, the expectations of the family, and kind of like branching out on your own, and then maybe you need to come back and it's weird and you kind of hate it, but you still feel that obligation and it gets all messed up and weird. And I always want to write him happy because I think you had a shit go of it for 15 years, baby. Let me fix it for you. You come over here and I will fix it for you. I don't like writing angsty things. I just want happy.
Yeah.
I was just watching an episode. It was the Just My Imagination one with Sully, and they had the backstory of him and how much he kind of wanted to, be a hunter and, go with his father and Dean. And you mentioned something that kind of like, I guess, because I always have to contrast them, right? Like that's the way I can kind of like reconcile, like it's Sam and Dean, just they make this like two sides of the same coin kind of thing. And do you think that with Sam, it's really more of always wearing a mask for a long time? Like in terms of what does he have to show based off of, who he's with and the situation? I mean, what you mentioned about him being in Stanford, I mean, I can't really thinking about it, how much he just didn't tell Jessica, about what was going on with him and his life, and having to hide that so much depending on like where he was, and then the running away. Like that's just, I don't know, that kind of stuck out to me when you were talking.
Yeah, I mean, he really like I've written one of my favorite things to write has been this crossover series that I wrote about Spencer Reed from Criminal Minds and Sam becoming friends. And they have so much in common. They're so like geeky and adorable and traumatized together. And I love writing this series. And they're just they're just best friends, and they like call each other up and like don't really talk about what's going on in their lives. But one of the things that I filled in with the last piece of that series was his relationship with Amelia and like what he did when Dean was gone. And I think that some of the most interesting things about Sam and some of the things that we don't see at all are who he is when Dean's not around, because he has no idea who he is when Dean's not around sometimes.
Yeah.
It just like unmoors him. And so trying to, get in that headspace of, and again, when Dean is in hell, there's that element of, the demon blood and the amount of self-loathing that must have been going on there. And then with Amelia, it's this thing of like, I can only be loved when I hide this massive part of my identity. I feel like there's so much to explore there. And I really I feel like it's not so much a compare and contrast thing. So like Sam, it feels like there's always something that Sam has to hide about himself. And it's just a different part based on where he is and who he's with.
Can you talk about the Amelia storyline, please? What did you think of that?
Amelia.
Oh, jeez.
That's my input to this.
I have a lot of problems with that storyline, just like a lot from a writing perspective. Really, like if I think about it from it feels very lazy from the writer's perspective. And I think that, I really wish that they had actually taken the time to make her a character and not just someone to sort of give Sam shit and their dynamic was so weird.
It didn't work, right? Like they didn't, I didn't see, and I've listened to other people talk about it too. I don't see what I could see at the base level where if he was like running from something, right? Like that was maybe like where he ended up, but I didn't see there was nothing there. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel I felt they were broken together, right? Like, so you could maybe connect that, but I didn't.
You don't regularly run over dogs and then form intense romantic relationships with was she the owner of the dog or the vet that treated the dog?
She's a vet.
You don't regularly. That's how much I remember about the Amelia storyline. Oh, fuck you, lady. Just fucking once. It would have been really nice for Sam to just have a relationship with someone who wasn't awful. Like, that would have just been Ruby was awful. Amelia was awful. Fucking
Eileen is great. I love Eileen.
Oh yeah, Eileen is great.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
He has a type. He likes the teeny tiny, dark-haired brunettes who could
please
fuck
don't
him
say
up.
it. Please don't say it. Oh God, please don't say it. If someone else says that to me, I'm gonna just explode. Please don't. I don't want to hear anything to do with Size King or anything to do with a word that might start with D. No.
But, I think he likes that whole oh shit, realizing that this girl could kick his ass, whether verbally or physically. And, it takes him by surprise. Anyway, I think that that was something that I really went into in that story, was the fact that there was no real connection there other than the fact that both of them needed a fresh start. And that they could have had a really rich storyline with that, and they really didn't give it the emotional time and space and patience that it deserved, I think, because that could have, that could say a lot about Sam, the fact that he really clings to whatever he can find and tries to run away when Dean isn't around. He turns and runs in the opposite direction. And make himself the exact opposite of who he is when Dean is around, because he doesn't know what else to do with himself. I think. Yeah, he really just I think that he just really needed a fresh start, and he happened to find someone else who did, and so they formed this incredibly unhealthy, dishonest relationship that maybe Sam needed a little bit to pretend like he could be normal for a little while. I get it. I don't love how the writers approached it. So.
Yeah. I wonder if they didn't do the flashback too, if they'd kind of done it a little bit differently. Because that whole season, even with the purgatory stuff, I almost felt like if they'd kind of done it a little more linear, it might have had a different groove to it, and you could kind of like really understand, what was going on and sink into that, without like the flashbacks and every time Amelia was like gauzy, like it was like, what filter are they using? And I mean, it's a shame because it's the best season by far for Sam hair, but it's like, so you definitely get that aspect of it. But like, otherwise,
we're gonna interject right here because Lou is bringing some really insightful thoughts about like the character of Sam and things like that, and I'm a base person, so which is your favorite season of hair? And if you don't say 8, I'm gonna kick you out of the Zoom right now.
I think it should be 8. Like the scene where he is in bed like with Amelia at the hotel, and the sheets are down around his waist, and he's shirtless, and the hair is just flowing around his shoulders, and like that is peak physical perspective. Right? Like it doesn't really get much better than that.
No. I think he has his shirt on in that scene though, because I remember remarking to multiple people.
That scene, she is wearing his shirt. He is shirt.
Oh, it's a different scene then, because there's definitely a scene of them in the hotel, because the camera follows the trail of clothes, and then he's in bed with a white shirt on, and I'm like, how you take all those clothes off, fam, and you've kept that shirt on? No.
It's the one where they get back together, like where it's not a flashback. It's like when he goes back to see her and they end up in bed together, and he's like propped up on one elbow, sort of like gazing off into the distance, and angstily, and like I just love him. He's so pretty. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I will go and Google it. Oh God, I've Googled it, and now I'm looking at that filter that they put over her all the time. And God. That was so good hair though. That was the best hair season. That was the best hair season of them all.
He looked really good in some of the later seasons too. Like seasons, I guess it was like 12 and 13. That was a really good look. And then season 4 was fantastic. I love season 4.
Yeah.
I love a dark side Sam, honestly.
Come to the right place.
I liked season 6's hair. I thought season 6 hair went really well with Soulless Sam.
Sideburns. Wait, was the sideburn season 6 or season 7?
It's multiple seasons, and I love it in all
Pork
of them.
chops? Was it like 6 or 7?
where it's coming out into his cheeks. I like it. I like it in all the seasons.
But like otherwise, season 6 and 7, he was spectacularly beautiful. But just all of the seasons. Fine.
Yeah, but season 6 had that scene in it, so.
That one scene, we
don't even need to mention it. We're just like, that one scene though. There was like 5 minutes long, and it's the best part of the whole fucking show. Genuinely fight me.
I sort of like sat up and was like, oh shit, like this is a problem. This is a serious. I have a problem.
I'm ashamed, Sandra. Right now,
you're
I don't know.
To. I'm going to mute myself because I just can't. I feel like I need to hang my head in shame.
I don't know how many previous episodes of the podcast you've listened to, Lou, but we were talking about how we got into Supernatural, and she was brought to Supernatural by Jared from Gilmore Girls and gave up on him for Dean in season 6. She had that fucking scene, and she was like, nah, the short one.
Okay. To each his own.
Thank you. No, not for that one. No, I will shame you about that forever. If you'd have come from Days of Our Lives or that other daytime TV show he was on and been like, yes, Steve, it would have been fine. But no, Padalecki drew you in with all his beautiful face, and you went.
And I went, no, I'm gonna
out.
It took me that long to kind of make a decision. And it was that
were millimeters from Dick, Sandra. His jeans were that low, and you were like, nah, the short one with no hair. That's the one. I love Dean, but like that's always gonna be a part of it. How dare you? How do you do this?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm trying to get it back to Soulless Sam though for a second.
Tell me your feelings on Soulless Sam.
Storyline. I mean, you were talking a lot about the demon blood, but it feels like you get a lot of inspiration from Soulless Sam stuff too, Lou.
Okay, so I have thought about this so much because like I have massively like psychoanalyzed myself based on Supernatural.
As we all have.
Like I've never gone to therapy and I really should have, but like all of my therapy has been writing about Supernatural. So so
That's fair.
The way I feel about it is that Soulless Sam is sort of and I think this is what a lot of people sort of get wrong about him, is that he's not evil. He is not like this monster, chaotic, whatever. He is Sam without any of the self-doubt or shame. And I think shame is what powers Sam a lot and makes him doubt himself and you know, makes him really question who he is. And so I think that without that, and without the sort of, you know, he doesn't feel guilty about anything. He doesn't feel ashamed of himself. He doesn't care. And so he's not, going after women and like all of that because he is degrading or whatever. He sees and he wants and he goes after. And I think that for me, you know, a lot of what I write about, I guess, is comes down to like the amount of shame that a lot of women feel about sex. And a lot of, you know, there's so much shame surrounding any discussion of, you know, kink and all of it, really. I mean, all of those things that so many women fantasize about, there is this stigma and the shame around. And I think that for me, something that I've written a lot about is just like the finding someone who you trust enough and who will not shame you for any of those things. And for me, that, you know, like that's like the ultimate fantasy, is finding someone who would make you not feel ashamed of anything when it comes to sex. And so for me, like Soulless Sam, I think is the perfect encapsulation of that, really. Because he does not give a fuck what is considered like wrong or right or taboo or whatever. If it makes you feel good, he wants to do it. And so that's like, I mean, for me, that's what like For Us Sinners was about, really, was, you know, him showing her like, I really don't care. Like, you can feel ashamed all you want and you can feel judged all you want, but like that's not coming from me. I will never make you feel guilty for any of this stuff. What was the line? Like God judges you, I don't. Something like that at the end. And yeah, I mean, for me, that's what it really comes down to, is that he does not feel any sort of shame whatsoever. And I think that's a really interesting, fascinating way to live. I can't imagine. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I do remember, I don't remember a lot of things that have gone into this. She keeps all the notes, but I do remember bringing a tag from For Us Sinners to the podcast, which was "They fuck in a church, I'm sorry." Because we had an episode on AO3 tags and I was like, this is good, it's just great. It encapsulates this whole story. I love it. It's yes.
Yep.
Fabulous. Now again, really insightful things about Soulless Sam there, and I'm over here like, I just think he's really hot when he doesn't give a fuck. Just like it when he's possessed.
But like that's what it is, right? You know, I mean, like everybody wants that sort of like animalistic, like does not care, completely like in the moment, dedicated to whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that that's incredible. And I think a lot of time, like Dean sort of has that attitude a lot of the time. When he talks about women, where he's like totally just like enthusiastic and happy and like like just gets really psyched about sleeping with women. And it's adorable. I love that about him. Like he's not degrading, he's appreciating. And I think that for Sam, a lot of these relationships that he has, again, like he has that like combative, shameful, guilty, this is not necessarily a healthy relationship going on a lot of the time. And like for me, that scene with Ruby where they finally hook up in I Know What You Did Last Summer, that is one of the hottest scenes that I have ever seen in my entire life.
It is though. It is
though. Oh my God. And it's where like he gets over he decides to do it anyway in spite of the guilt and shame that he feels in the moment. He's like, fuck it, let's just go for it. I know this is wrong and I'm going to do it anyway. I don't know. I just think it's really interesting.
My fic need was literally in that scene. I was watching it while I was sick, and I was like, hey, you know what would be really fun to do if we did if I did this, and it's still one of the things I'm most proud of, and everybody else seems to like it as well, which is always a bonus. Always a bonus. I think again, super insightful about like possessed Sam, soulless Sam, and the whole, he's not trying to fit in, he's not trying to be what people expect him to be, he's not trying to be like the good brother to Dean or anything like that. He's like, oh no, this is all for me, this is all for Sam, and fuck it. I like that.
Totally.
I'm into that as a concept. Okay, so this is normally the part of any given podcast where we would go, hey, our sponsor today is, but we ain't sponsored. So we just have some causes, some charities that we'd like to bring to your attention, point you in the direction of if you feel able or willing to donate to them. We have three main sort of causes, inverted commas, that we're promoting feels like the wrong word, but like signposting, highlighting, if you will. So the first one is to do with the conflict in Ukraine, the Russian invasion unlawfully of Ukraine. So we would just like to draw your attention to World Central Kitchen, which, as it sounds like, is, helping to feed people that are affected by this conflict. Although it's dropped out of the media quite a bit now, there's still a hell of a lot of people in the Ukraine that are trapped, that are cut off, that are struggling for food and water and basic supplies. So that's what that charity is there for. We have Kid Save, which, again, as the name suggests, is looking out for the children that are affected by this. I mean, conflict feels like the wrong word. It's, it's an unlawful invasion. But yeah, Kid Save. And then we have, if you don't feel you can or want to commit to just one single charity, we also have a link to the global giving page for the Ukraine Crisis Relief Fund, which obviously is then split between various different places that it needs to go. It's sort of the global equivalent of a GoFundMe or a Just Giving page. So we have that. And then for those of you that are in the US, and oh Lord, we know it's hard right now. We do. So we have the Mums Demand Action, Ending Gun Violence, the Sandy Hook Promise, advocate for gun regulation in your state, wherever you may be. We have the American Civil Liberties Union, which is, basic human rights. Come on, people. It doesn't feel like it should be this hard, but somebody needs to give your government a kick up the ass and be like, hey, it's not this hard. You're making it harder than it is. And then, of course, vote.gov, look up the voting regulations in your state, in your area, find out what you need to do, be informed, be prepared, because that is the best way to enact any kind of change. And that doesn't just go for the US, that goes for the UK, anywhere else. Educate yourself. Know what you need to do so nobody can catch you out. Last cause, definitely not least, LGBTQ plus people. My folks, we are under attack. There's no easy way to say it. There's no nice way to say it. People want us dead, yo. It's really heavy in the US. It's coming in the UK, and it's fucking hard. There's no one cause fits all for this. There's nothing particularly global. And to be honest, I didn't really want to signpost to any, causes that are fighting against this. I want to bring this down more to people. You know, we're not a statistic. Everyone's a person. So the causes I want to signpost are Switchboard LGBT in the UK and the Trevor Project in the USA. And they are both services where you can reach out, you can be connected to people to talk to. You know, it's hard. We need to come together, guys. So if you need to talk to somebody, if you need help, if you are not safe where you are, these charities will help you. You know, reach out to them, even if it's just someone to talk to, even if it's just someone to go, this fucking sucks. If you need that help, reach out as well. For anyone outside of the US and the UK, I'd like to draw your attention to the Trevor Project. Again, they have resources for international LGBTQ plus people, youth. We know that as much as it's hard in our countries, it's a hell of a lot harder in some other countries, and it's not easy to come out. It's not easy to be safe. So take a look at that link for some resources, some places to go for help, some ideas of how to keep yourself safe. So again, it's not a sponsor. We wish we had a nice, fun sponsor to bring you, but we know that it's hard, and we just want to point you in the direction of help for others if you can give it, and help for yourself if you need it. So back to the podcast, I guess.
Can I bring it to Dean for a second for contrast purposes? Because you started talking about Soulless Sam, and I was wondering what your thoughts are on Demon Dean, and if it's still a little bit different than Soulless Sam. Because I feel like in the beginning, and they could have explored that a lot more, and they didn't. But I think with Demon Dean, there's still inherently there was some shame or guilt there, where I don't think there necessarily was with Soulless Sam. Like I don't know. With Dean, there's more bravado, you know, and like, well, this is what I think I need to be doing too in that scenario, where Sam just didn't have it, you know. He just didn't care.
Yeah. So I feel like Demon Dean is almost just like the purest form of all of the worst parts of Dean.
Yeah.
Like it's not, and I think it's because he doesn't have a purpose. And for Dean, I always feel like the core thing that, the core negative emotion that he feels, like the core thing that motivates him. For Sam, it's shame, and for Dean, it's guilt. And I think that the biggest difference in their personality. So like, for Sam, it's who he is, and for Dean, he feels guilty for the things that he's done. And he defines himself by the things that he does. He defines himself by his mission, and like the fact that he has always had this purpose in life. And so I think that when Demon Dean comes along, there is no purpose. There is no mission. There is no like drive.
It's just karaoke at a bar and hanging out with Karlee. Yeah. Yeah.
And
hey, there was that scene in bed.
Well, that was great, but yeah, there was purpose there for
yeah.
But it's all those like nasty bits of him.
Yeah, he's so mean to her, and it's like the way that it's not. Yeah, like you said, the very like base parts of like that. Just
It's his most selfish instincts, and like it takes away all of his drive to make the world better, and therefore like takes away the things that he likes about himself, I think. Because I think those are the things that he likes about himself is like the way that he can protect other people and what he can give to other people. And when he's a demon, he doesn't care. I really like, and he seems so depressed. Honestly, I mean, he seems so sad. Like he's like sitting at the bar, like lazily playing the piano. I read this analysis once that was the notes that he plays. It's just like a couple notes there, and they're the beginning notes of "Hey Jude," which is a song that Mary uses. And so he's like sitting there at the piano in a bar, thinking about his mom. And being sad about it. And to me, that's such an interesting, like, I had never noticed that. I didn't pay that much attention when I saw it, but I think that's a really interesting, like, encapsulation of who he was in that moment, where he has all of Dean's like guilt and sort of self-loathing dialed up to 11, like nonstop.
Yeah.
How about the parent dynamic? How much of a John Winchester, because we are very much not, on board with anything.
The best John Winchester
Winchester
is a dead John Winchester.
He is the worst. He is the absolute worst. And I will die on that hill. There are very few things that I like. I cannot stand him. I cannot stand him. It makes me so sad.
It was a lot of for us, I know Karlee and I have talked, just the stuff he withheld from them for so long, and what that knowledge and information could have done to empower them both, but especially Sam. If he felt this shame and could never really identify it for so long, why not be that parent that's like, I know this thing, let me help you, or maybe that'll give you, a feeling of this is where you belong, in this world. You don't have to run away from it. Let's face it together, instead of this, well, I'm just going to insulate the both of you, and just, this is what we're going to do. This is the game plan. And where Dean is very much like, the soldier, Sam needs the information. Sam needs the knowledge. It's not just good enough that dad said it, he needs to know the why. So yeah.
I think also that like the worst thing that John Winchester ever did was making Dean feel like he didn't have a purpose beyond protecting his brother.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I mean, you see it. That's what he always says to Dean is, don't you dare leave Sam alone. You will protect him, or else this is your purpose in life, and you can't feel good about yourself unless you're doing a good job at this. And I think that is what defines Dean, like, down to the very fucking end. And I think that like I have a lot of problems with the finale, but I think that one of the things that I like about it was the fact that Dean chose to stop and rest at that point. Chose to stop and rest and walk away from Sam, because Sam wouldn't have left the life if Dean was still there. He never would have, and they would have resented each other for it. And you see that dynamic, like that push and pull, like through all 15 seasons. So at that point, at the finale, if they had done that again and said like, oh yeah, we're gonna like stick together and keep hunting, I feel like that's just setting them up for a repeat of the same cycle that has happened.
Yeah,
throughout.
It is frustrating. Like again, like watching it over and over and over again, season after season. We're just like screaming at the screen, like, why are you guys doing this again? Why, and there's very slow improvement, right? Like, again, I think they had 15 years to kind of get each of them to a little bit of a better place. I think Dean was much more dug into his heels and not willing, or not willing to at least accept or whatever. But I think Sam sort of, Karlee and I have thought, he had to have gotten a little bit of therapy. We feel like he did at some point. Like, he had to.
Post Dean, he had to have gone to somebody and been like, "Hi, please." I'm insane.
Yeah.
But I feel like that was the one thing, like that was the only possible satisfying ending to that like core motivation that has defined Dean from the very beginning, is to say to his dad, like, fuck you, I'm not gonna watch out for Sam anymore. I'm going to stop and rest. I am going to enjoy this. Like, I wrote something about this, like sort of filling in the blanks, and the way I see it was that he had like a mental conversation with Jack in that moment and said like, please don't bring me back, just make it easy. Just make it like easy for me to go. And I think that he could have come back if he wanted to. He's Dean fucking Winchester. And so I think that was like that his moment of, making that choice finally to stop away and let Sam have his life and to take a breath and rest. And I think that he deserved that. And regardless of like whatever other problems I have with the finale, and I have many, I think that was the only possible satisfying arc for him. In
looking back on it now, I think he made that decision a little while before the ban, though. I think that decision came when he genuinely pulled a gun on Sam over Jack a few episodes beforehand, and he was there. They were down to the wire, and he was like, "Oh no, I will." And obviously Sam talked him down, and it was fine, and they went through. But I think that was probably that turning point for Dean, where he's like, "This has to stop. We're gonna kill each other. Either we're physically gonna kill each other, or we're gonna stay together, and the life will kill us."
And I think that, like, I like to think that there was a lot of time that passed between, them killing Chuck and that final episode.
Yeah. Years.
And I think at that point, like, when you have vanquished God and like very much served your purpose, I don't think that I think that was all of the normal that Dean wanted. And once he sort of had that and like knew that the world was not going to be under the thumb of an oppressive dictatorial father the way that he was most of his life, he was okay, and he felt like he had done his job, and he said, I'm not going to just hang around and protect my brother for the rest of my life. I think that was the ultimate fuck you to John Winchester, and I love that for him.
It's a little bit of a rub, though, too, that it was one of his father's cases, that kind of didn't get finished, that ended up, being a source of his demise, too, which kind of pisses me off. It's like the parent mistakes still linger and create issues, too.
No, I like that, though, because that's a callback.
It's a callback, but it still pisses me off.
No, that's fair enough, but I like the fact that John's mistake drove them back together, and then it was again John's mistake that closed the book, if you like. I don't mind that so much. Fuck John Winchester, though.
Point of view, it's very satisfying. From a if you think about it, for the character, I get mad. But from a narrative,
narratively, but for the character, it's like, really,
really, like you've been dead for like 13 seasons, John. Fuck off. We don't need any more of your input. You've been
no more influence, please. Stop.
I know you came back for that one time, which was weird, and we all thought it was weird. And I don't know who signed off on that. No,
trying to retcon all of his awful parenting. Like, oh god, I'm really happy for Sam that he got that moment of his dad looking him in the eyes and telling him he was proud. But like, is that supposed to make
Dean
the rest
didn't
of us
though?
forget
Dean didn't though.
How awful he was.
Yeah, Sam got the apology. Dean didn't get fuck all. I don't know who signed off on that episode, but it was dumb, and I didn't like it. Oh my god.
Okay.
I like the blooper. I like the blooper from that episode, though. That's funny.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Just mostly because it reinforces that no matter how old they get, they are both still 15-year-old boys.
Small children.
The floor laughing. I really like that.
I love it. Yeah.
So, I mean, bringing it kind of back to AO3 from the show, because I mean, we could sit here forever and a day and talk about the show. And I've got to say, you've given me a lot to think about. I'm taking notes, going away, pondering over it. So let's look at some kind of like fanfic things. Are there any tropes that you really love? Any tropes that you find yourself using? Anything you're like, nope, none of that? Talk to us about that.
I've never been like a huge fan of ABO, but that's, again, like I've read it before, like to each his own, I think that the right author can sell me on just about anything.
Yeah.
Like the writing is good enough. I'm not going to look at the labels as much. And that's how I tend to like find fic, is just, browse until I find a really incredible fic by an author, and then like go read all of their works at once.
Yeah, we do that as well. It's like a little present to you, isn't it? When you click on this like 20 odd works and you're like, oh fucking god, yes.
And I think that like the other thing that I really dislike is and this is more of like a philosophical, like society as a whole problem than a writing problem, but I think that a lot of like BDSM and kink fic especially is very unhealthy.
Yes.
The dynamics that are portrayed are
Yes.
incredibly unhealthy, and that is, I am not about that. I you know, maybe it's bitchy to call it the 50 Shades effect, but
No, it is though. We're gonna blame all of that on her. Every last fucking bit of it, it's all her.
Yeah, I have a big problem with the way a lot of you know, really unhealthy relationships are glorified. And there's one thing, it's one thing to sort of work through that shit as a writer and like be, you know, but I think you can tell. I think you can tell when the writer is working through some things that they know are unhealthy, like dark impulses or negative history or whatever, versus someone who just thinks that that's how relationships are supposed to be. And I don't know how you can tell. I don't know, like I don't know how to, you know, define it, but I think reading, it's the same thing as like the male gaze in porn, where you don't really like, you can tell when it's not that. You can tell, you know. Anyway, that really bothers me. But other than that, I'll read just about anything, honestly.
Yeah. Is there anything like, if you like, let's say, I don't know how often you like read on AO3 versus Tumblr, but is there any tags that you just like automatically exclude and you're just like, nah, none of that? Any warnings or anything? Because we have things that we just automatically, I do.
Incest is a no for me, incest and pedophilia, but like beyond that, no. There used to be, I think when I started reading and writing again, like I was processing a lot of trauma and there were things that were really triggering for me to read, and so I stayed away from. But at this point, I've worked through a lot of my shit, and I think that as long as you're aware of what you're going into, like I don't think that, you know, is really off limits for me. Sometimes you're just in the mood to read like some really brutal, awful, terrible things happening to someone, as long as you know there's a happy ending.
Yeah, that's always the key, isn't it? We don't want anyone to be sad. Just like we can beat the fuck out of each other, but then I want hugs afterwards. I want or at least
people. Like think about it, you know, like it's okay to make people sad if you want them to, if they end up like working through their own shit, I think. And I think that's what it is for me, is that like, you know, like I said, it's always been kind of a therapeutic thing for me. And I think that, you know, when I was growing up, I was really lonely a lot of the time. I felt really isolated, and I was working through trauma and like all of this stuff. And I think that when I was in high school, especially, like there were times when books and movies and music were, you know, there for me when people weren't. And that was kind of how I learned to deal with my own emotions and to sort of connect. There's this quote that I love. I quote this all the time, and but it's from the History Boys, and I'm paraphrasing, so forgive me if I get it wrong, but it's the best moments in reading are when you come across something, a thought or a way of looking at things that you had thought special, or particular to yourself. And here they are, set down on the page by someone you've never met, maybe even someone long dead, and it's as if a hand has come out and taken yours. And for me, that's always like when you have those moments where you're like, oh, that's how I feel. That's what I'm going through. I'm not the only one who feels that way. I think for me, that's always what I've wanted to do with writing, and like what I love about art in all its forms, is that connection. And so, you know, nobody's alone in what they're feeling. Nobody's like the only person who has these fantasies, or like the only person who's gone through this thing, and writing and stories are the way that we kind of reach out to each other when we can't do it in person. And so I think that, you know, like, yeah, it's really healing. Like, even when you find the sad stories, even when you find the darker ones, you know, it's nice to know that you're not the only one, and there's somebody else out there thinking about those things. So yeah, I think anything goes. I won't read incest or pedophilia, but like Oh, and I guess
Yeah.
I'm not really like bodily fluids so much.
Yeah.
But genuinely, like there aren't really any common tropes that I'm kind of like violently against. So
Yeah, cool. Thank you for filling us in. So Sandra had some questions that are related to specific fics. So the floor is yours, Sandra.
Oh, I get
Go
to
for it.
ask. Yay.
You get questions. Both of hers are about Dean,
They're
by
not,
the way.
Technically. No,
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
No, the one question is not. It's a J2. It's a J2 story. So that's a
Dean
Jensen and
adjacent.
Jared.
It's Dean adjacent.
No, I wanted, because I know that you'd written the Everything series, the J2 Reader, and that you eventually like reworked and revised it to self-publish it. What made you decide to do that? Because I did that with, a Dean fic as well, kind of like, rework names, different things like that. And what your process was, knowing that, with writing and how long you've done that, like, did you edit it yourself? Did you get outside editing assistance? Like, if you could talk a little bit about that process and why you made that decision.
I don't think I edited much at all about that, except for like the names and filling in some details.
Mm-hmm.
Because like the annoying thing about original fiction is you have to introduce characters every time. It's that whole bit of nonsense.
Yeah.
And so, I added that in, but otherwise I think I mostly just changed the names because it was, it was an AU. So there was no real identifying things. It was, I think that was it. But I mean, I did that because, I was thinking about seeing if I could sort of make a go of it, like self-publishing on Kindle and stuff. And I didn't want to start with a completely original thing because I do this thing where I put a lot of pressure on myself and psych myself out. And, if I was going to write a story specifically for Kindle, I would have overthought it and like not ended up doing it at all. So instead I figured, I already have this. I'm really proud of it. It is the appropriate length for a novella, like might as well. That's a good place to start. That was about it. Honestly, I was really proud of that. And I'm proud of the fact that it sold like any copies. But it was interesting. I have realized that I don't think, publishing on Kindle is a thing for me, but I'm glad I tried it. So
yeah. And so then my Dean related question is about Marked. I just wanted to know, like, obviously Mark of Cain was, I'm guessing, the inspiration, but like, because it's a really long piece, and like, was there a certain something that you watched in Supernatural that inspired you to like go that route with Dean and like, go on that journey in that story with Mark?
So that's another one where that is 100% me working through my issues. That was an incredibly like personal thing to write. And honestly, it really started out as just, I want to explore some smutty smut. And then I kind of I started writing, and it turned into a little bit more than that. And I started thinking about, just like what it would be like to sort of have him fall for somebody in that state. And I had this idea of, like, what if they were together and then he changed and he turned into a demon. And then I realized that I was writing about my narcissistic ex who would like flip a switch and turn into a demon every so often. And that was my way of writing, a really good relationship where he ended up flipping a switch and she would have to deal with that. And I originally intended to leave it there when he changed. And then as I was working through the aftermath of that relationship for me, I realized that was only about the halfway point of the story, and that I owed it to myself and to them to sort of finish it out and give them a happy ending. And that was my way of sort of just writing out the recovery process and sort of feeling it out as I was living it, and trying to write myself a happy ending, I guess. And what would it be, if we were in that together, and if he wasn't a bad person, and just making, like writing what you wish it could have been, almost. I definitely do that a lot, but like that was a super intense thing to write, and it took me like 2 years. Like there was a point where I
ask, how long it took. Yeah. Okay.
I stopped for like 6 months between a couple chapters. There was a point where like I wasn't sure if I was going to finish it. And parts of it were like really, I just did not want to write about it in places. I got there. And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of that story.
As you should be. It's
great.
It's an awesome story. Yeah.
It is one of my favorites for sure.
Thank you. I still can't believe like how much of my emotional energy that took.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you start sort of working through your kind of issues through the fiction, you have to see it through, don't you? But you're like, I don't want to do this. And it's hard.
When you're ready. Yeah. It's like, just like you're processing everything. Everybody's timeline is different, and sometimes it can take a while to get there and find that ability to.
And I think the nice thing about fiction, and especially, fantasy and stuff, is that it gives you a layer of separation. Like you have to look directly at those emotions. And I think that's what allowed me to work through a lot of it, was that I wasn't, trying to tell the actual nonfiction story.
Right.
There were demons and, jinns and magic and whatever. And then I could just write about the emotional stuff there. So it gives you that layer of distance and a layer of separation that really, like, especially when you're talking about trauma, like you kind of need that.
Yeah.
You need that barrier between yourself and the memories, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wanted to know
your
favorite Sam work that you've written, and what we could read if we could do one of them for like when we do our ramble on, or when I do the ramble on narration, what one I might be able to read.
So I think one of my favorite to write has been that Spencer Reid, Sam Winchester friendship series, which is called Coffee and Psychopaths. They drink a lot of coffee and just like talk about science a lot, and like serial killers, and geek out about psychology, and I love that shit. And it's like a really fun puzzle, sort of like meshing the canons together and finding like the crossover in those. But anyway, it was really fun to write. I don't know if it's like the best or what I'm most proud of. Marked is definitely up there. That's one of the ones I am still. Sometimes I go back and I really like get the itch to rewrite the first couple chapters, because I think it shows that it was written over 2 years. But and then All That I Ask, which is a Sam one, is about a different stage of recovery, I guess. But that was really meaningful to me. I'm really proud of that one.
Sandra sent me the link for that one like a week ago, and I was like, yep, no, I'm definitely, yes, I will read that before podcast. And I didn't, so I'm really sorry.
I read
about
it
that.
though, so it's definitely up for contention. Yes, I think that might be the winner, at least. That if you're good with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really anything though. I mean, I have like a post of my favorites on a section of my favorites on Tumblr. So like really anything on there, like go, honestly, anything. I'm proud of all of them. Like,
good, as you should be. Are there any other writers that you would recommend to for our readers that we should
as far as like supernatural reader insert, my favorites are Little Green Plastic Soldier.
Yeah.
She's amazing. I absolutely love her stories. She was one of the first people that got me into supernatural. And Spoops, SP dash OOPS, I think is how it's spelled on Tumblr.
Okay.
But she has some stories that are just so mind-blowingly hot. The way that she writes Sam is just incredible.
Okay.
Yes. Give me all them Sam links, Lou. Give me all of them.
Anything on either of their master lists, honestly, are really fantastic.
Okay.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for that. So I think unless you have anything else you want to talk about, we're out of questions. Anything else you want to talk about? Signpost? Anything?
I don't think so, really. I mean, like I'm always down to talk about writing and supernatural and psychoanalyze the shit out of everybody.
Right. That's good, because that means then, if we ever decide to, do another topic or something and maybe you're available, you could come on.
Yeah.
And come back and chat.
This has been super fun. This has been super, super fun.
It's been great. We've loved it as well.
It's nice to like geek out about a thing with other people who love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a little escape, right? I enjoy these times with Karlee a lot. So it's nice to increase, reach out to other people and I just like listening to, your thoughts on everything as well, and seeing how Karlee and I were talking about it a little bit earlier. Like you're talking about wish fulfillment and just different things that, as writers and just as people, we all really have in common. And I like hearing that. It makes me feel to have a little more, I don't know if hope is a good word right now, but maybe a little more hope, in what's happening in the future and things in general. That
I think, like, honestly, in all of the good stuff that I ever learned about sex, like consent and body positivity and kink in a healthy way, and like all of this, like it all came from fan fiction.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep. Stuff from fan fiction before I would ever like even consider it in real life. And I think that if I hadn't had that example, I wouldn't have known so many things about like how to ask for things, honestly. Yeah. I mean, it's so like, where do they teach that shit? There is no good way to learn about it.
I raised my hand as a 48-year-old woman. Fanfic is what's helped me.
Yeah.
And I think that like, I really, it's been so incredible to find, just like, to just reach out and write about some of the things that have always tripped me up, and not only just like be able to write about like how it should have gone, but to sort of find other people who have those same hangups and the same insecurities, and just really like carve out a space for ourselves where female sexuality is encouraged and openly discussed. And I don't know.
Not dictated by someone else as to how it has to be. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so important. And it's really honestly like changed my life and how I think about a lot of things, because I really I don't think that I would have realized a lot of things about sex and consent if it hadn't been for fan fiction. So
100%.
I love it. I love the little community, and I love, the friends that I've made, and I love just the fact that it exists and that there are people who care enough about these things to write about them. And
absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Lou. We're going to do a couple like more housekeeping things, but we wanted to thank you for coming. We definitely want to try to have you back at some point. We'd love to talk more about more things supernatural, themes, writing, all that great stuff. And I'm glad we got a chance to connect. Like I said, I've followed you for a while on Tumblr, and had your stuff, like I've subscribed to you on AO3 for a while. So really just to get to talk to you has been awesome. It's been great.
I really appreciate it. Thank
Small
you.
fan mortal moment. Just like, oh my God.
It still surprises me whenever that happens. Like, it's so nice and flattering.
Yeah,
it's really
absolutely. You've done a lot of you've done great service for many of us. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Lou. And listeners, if you want to go check out Lou's stuff, which is freaking awesome, and you absolutely should, it's There Must Be a Lock, and it's underscores on AO3 and dashes on Tumblr. I remember things.
Yeah, and we're gonna put tons of like links and stuff in the description.
Oh,
too,
yeah,
so that you'll be able to find
links all over the
stuff.
show.
Yeah.
Links all over the show. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been freaking awesome. You're welcome back anytime. Come help me hold up Sam. He's really fucking heavy.
I will.
Yeah, we need more of that. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, email us at idlingintheimpala@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are idling in the letter D Impala. To reach out to me or to read some of my work on AO3, you can find me under Drasna, Drasna. On Twitter, I'm skylewrites, SKYLEWRITES. And if you'd like to read some of my original fiction, you can visit my website at sandrakyle.com.
Yay, well done. She had to read that. I know she had to read that. So I'm the agent of chaos and all the things, but in this one specific area, I'm very organized. So if you want to reach out to me, I am Karlee Karma on AO3 and Twitter. So that's Kilo Alpha Romeo Lima Echo Echo, and then Karma as you spell it normally. Same profile picture in both places, in case you think, hey, I wonder if there's two people out there with a weird spelled name. Same profile picture, it's probably me. So, reach out, send us an email, reach out to us on Twitter. If you've got any fic recommendations, you've got any things you want to hear us talk about, hear our opinions on, reach out, let us know what's going on. Thank you very much for listening, guys, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.